Hello and welcome to the Being Human podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Greg Bottaro, and today I've got a really, really interesting guest and topic. We're talking about demons. Whoa. What happens with demon possession, demon influence? What is all this about deliverance prayer? And how does it overlap with the psychological? Here's the premise. I'm going to spill the beans a little bit. I think that our world and culture, and especially our Catholic culture, especially the social media Catholic culture, is sensationalizing the devil and demonic activity and demonic access to our hearts and souls and minds. So I'm going to lay it out there up front, but we're going to unpack how and why and what that means and what that looks like. We're actually going to talk about some other things like Dungeons and Dragons and Harry Potter and Tolkien and C.S. Lewis and reading and parenting and all sorts of other things that we go far and wide, and then we go deep, and it's really beautiful. I think this is an awesome conversation. Dr. Sean Tobin, he's got a book that I think is really, really important for our culture right now in this conversation. It's called Big God, Little Devil. And if anything, I'll tell you, our shared position on this, these are not equal enemies on the playing field. Who's going to win the match? It's very simple. It's very clear. God's the creator. He's the dad who loves us. We have nothing to be afraid of. And yet, the current approach to these things seems to be causing a lot of fear. Think about that. The approach in the media, especially from certain influencers, even priests, exorcists, who are sensationalizing these things, are causing fear. I think we have to work on that. So I'm doing my part here. I hope you enjoy this episode. I hope it blesses you. Check out Dr. Sean Tobin's book, Big God, Little Devil. And otherwise, enjoy. God bless you. I spent the last 10 years learning how to help people using the best techniques available in psychology integrated with the Catholic faith. Now we've figured out that there's a better way to help people than just slapping a Catholic label on the same secular model of therapy you find anywhere else. The real question is, how will we make this shift to a new model of truly Catholic accompaniment, keeping the psychological sciences in mind while opening up to a more human and more effective approach? This podcast is here to give you the answer. Join me and follow along as I take you behind the scenes of what this new model looks like, using recorded audio from sessions working with my team, with colleagues, and even directly with clients. My name is Dr. Greg Bottaro, and I want to welcome you to the Being Human podcast.
The first time that we actually talked was, gosh, how many years ago now? Like 15 years ago, maybe, when I went to IPS, which is now DMU.
Right.
I was coming in as you were leaving, and you tried selling me your car. I'm pretty sure it was like a Jetta, and I was actually into Jettas back then, so it was perfect. But you were on your way to New York, and I was on my way to DC. And I just, for the first time I met you, I just sense this entrepreneurial spirit in you.
The way you're making this sound is like I was trying to like used car salesman trying to sell me. He tried to sell me a car. Where I know I was trying to sell the car. Were you not looking for a car at that point, or?
You know, that's actually a mystery. I forget that detail, but just what stands out is your charisma then. And I just always knew that you weren't just meant for the 9-to-5 therapist job. That guy's different.
Oh man. You know, any of my classmates back then would totally appreciate your comments right now. They used to razz me all the time. Nobody thought that I would just be doing like just therapy, or even if I should be doing therapy at all.
Hilarious.
That's funny. I'm trying to remember what happened to that car. I did list it for sale. We moved to New York, and I had gotten a studio apartment on the Upper East Side that we had as our first place when we got married. And I knew I wasn't going to need a car. And my wife actually had this old orange Honda Element,
Oh, okay.
which is those really cool boxy cars.
Yeah, that's like
It,
something.
they're super fun. You could like, she loved it. You could like open up the doors. You could take it like off roading and stuff. And then
And
you can like
you said it was
spray out.
orange, right?
Yeah, it was orange.
Orange, okay. Just making sure.
And you can spray out the inside with a hose. And then it had like all the drainage vents, and you could just like spray it out, clean it out that way. So we had to sell both cars because we're moving up to Manhattan.
Yeah.
And I don't remember who bought. I'm trying to remember when I actually sold the Jetta. It obviously wasn't you.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. No, that's hilarious though. Yeah, man.
But yeah, so when did you graduate IPS?
Gosh, when was that now? 20.
You're not that old. It's not that many years.
I hate these questions though. I'm terrible at it. IPS, when was that? So I've been married going on 11 years. So it must have been 2012 or 2013 when I finished there, and then I continued on at APU for the doctorate.
Well, 2012 is when I graduated.
So it must have been 2014 then. Yeah, it must have been 2014. Yeah, that makes sense. And then I finished up at APU.
You finished someplace else.
Yeah, I didn't get into the PsyD program at IPS because I don't think I was the academic model material that they were looking for at the time. So,
man. And
yeah,
where did you do your undergrad?
I actually so my background is a little bit spotty. I was atheist for a good 10 years, and
okay.
I mean I flunked out of college 3 times, and
3 times.
Oh yeah, so I definitely struggled. Hey, got a doctorate, so it's possible.
It's all well that ends well.
There you go. I ended up going to Franciscan University, Steubenville, transferring credit from all over the place to basically transferred in as a sophomore, but graduated in like 2.5 years. So also did
cool.
almost 3 years of religious life in between. So I took a year off after my first year Franciscan, joined religious life, went back to Franciscan, and then went to IPS. So it was kind of an interesting journey. So we can kind of talk over that if you want a little bit, but yeah, man, it's been a journey. So
what religious order did you spend time with?
Yeah, so I was with the Intercessors of the Lamb. They were a small community in Omaha, Nebraska, mixed community.
Yeah.
And a post-renewal, some of the only more contemporary communities, but it was beautiful because we were hermits technically, and very contemplative. 6 hours of individual prayer time a day, but we lived in community too. So they were also deeply charismatic, and so every Thursday even we had a prayer meeting with locals that came in, and 3 times a week we would have dinner as a full community, which was like 100 brothers and sisters and priests. So it was pretty cool, and our specialty was really retreat direction, Ignatius style retreat direction, 8-day, 30-day, and then doing a lot of parish missions and stuff, but primarily just living a kind of Benedictine lifestyle, really, of prayer and work and community time. And it was pretty incredible. I remember one of the special things in the community was, since my background was in the kind of charismatic renewal, I remember that they had this special 4th vow of victim love, where, according to Saint Therese of Lisieux, she wanted to offer herself for victim for love, and that's her calling. And so they had a 4th vow, poverty, obedience, chastity, and victim love. And when you're blessed, it's really for this charism of intercession, and it's not just someone who likes supplications and likes to ask for things from God. It's more standing in the gap, where you start to actually experience something for someone. The clearest example, or the craziest example, is when I woke up one day, morning prayer with the brothers, and I had this overwhelming feeling of guilt that I had caused someone to commit suicide. And I had this grief that was overwhelming. And these thoughts were plaguing my mind. And they're kind of like the idea of like an involuntary thought that just keeps kind of jumping in, right? And it just kind of kept coming in, and this guilt. And it was a pretty brutal few days. We actually had a guy, a layman, who was staying with the brothers that week on silent retreat, living in the house, and didn't know anything about him. Just saw him silently in passing. And towards the end of the week, it came to my attention that the whole week that he was there, he was grieving his mom's suicide that recently happened. He walked in and saw her, and he was having these profound mystical healing experiences on his retreat. One of the brothers was directing him, and that burden of the guilt of having maybe not done something to protect someone from doing that to themselves, having not done enough, that kind of regret and guilt. For some reason, I was plagued with it all week. It was wild. And
Wow.
Yeah, so that was an interesting experience.
I love hearing all the ins and outs and the stories.
Yeah.
It's really beautiful. It's I always knew we had some comparisons and some similar steps on the journey.
Right.
I wasn't sure. I knew Franciscan was in your background. I knew the charismatic prayers in your background.
Yeah.
I didn't realize you spent so long and went so deep with religious life. Are they still around, the Intercessors of the Lamb?
No, so they ended up getting suppressed when they were trying to transition up from their foundress. And it's tough to have a mixed community with priests that are, I guess, ontologically in a different category. To be under a foundress, and just in general, a lot of people had difficulties with what we were doing. Like, we had some people reviewing the community from Rome, even where people were calling us oracles, almost, because it was really interesting. This was a really criticized thing, but I think it's beautiful. We would gather together daily to pray for the intercessions of people who would write in for prayer requests. But what they would do, they would send the request to different houses of brothers and sisters, but not tell each other who we're praying for. And then we would send what we would get in prayer. We'd gather together and we'd pray in the Spirit, just listen quietly in our hearts for words, images, whatever from the Lord, to basically just pray back to him, give him permission to do what he wants to do on earth as it is in heaven, And they would gather together from different houses, different groups, like a blind study almost, praying for these requests. And you'd often get confirming images, like the exact same thing from different houses. And we'd send that to the person that asked for prayers. And sometimes the revelations or whatever prophetic image was just so profound for the person. Man, their lives were changed. We'd have physical healing miracles we'd hear about just hearing, just reading our response. People could experience miracles. It was wild. And just leaning into listening to God, really. It was powerful.
It is powerful, and it's really beautiful. And I think that it is really, really challenging. I think for a number of reasons. The world is just not made for that, prepared for that, even within the church, obviously. And then also, obviously, there's so many cases where things within that context do go sideways.
Totally. We're all jacked up, so especially charismatics. We're the worst.
Right, that's what I mean.
Charismaniacs, I like to say.
Charismania.
Yeah, man. We're messed up.
It's so tough, man, because it's like you go from, like, even with the friars, I was with the CFRs.
That's right. I just started with you guys, but I don't know. Just it was like love at first sight when I saw the intercessors.
This is awesome, and there's different charisms for sure. But there's some of the CFRs. There's a lot of diversity within the friars that not a lot of people necessarily see on the surface, because a lot of the Instagram friars and the preaching friars all have like a particular personality, but then when you're on the inside, you see wow, there's a lot of different kinds of brothers here.
Yeah.
And some of them were like Latin Mass, some of them were like contemplative, deep, quiet, introverted. Some of them were really charismatic.
Right.
And it's amazing to think about like the miracles that I witnessed, that I was firsthand to. Like, speaking of Therese, there's this story, and this is crazy. This happened. where there was so the brothers can't beg for beer or alcohol at all.
Okay.
But
I like the story already.
they can ask, or they can drink beer or wine, but only if it's given to them. They can't ask for it, and they don't have hard liquor in the friaries or anything like that. But so they were like, well, we're going to pray for it. And they had a novena, and somebody had read that Therese, she was affectionately called by her father the little monkey.
Okay.
That was like her family pet name for her, like the little monkey. And so they started praying a novena to the little monkey, and they were asking her for beer, and specifically Guinness.
Oh my!
And on the 9th day of the novena, somebody came to the door with a crate of bananas and a case of Guinness.
What?
We were just like, and this is not like crazy, I'm not going like crazy charismatic here, but like that was just normal. Like that's just a normal story.
But
it's a normal thing.
That's answered prayer, and we believe in that. All of us as Catholics,
of course.
Everyone gets roses from Saint Therese. You know,
it's like the humor of God.
But beer.
It's the love of the Father who just like wants to give us good things.
I love that, man.
It's like so many elements to that.
Well,
and it's like
even piggybacking on that, right? When I was in the intercessors, we would send people. We would make Christmas fudge every year and mail it to people on our list. And one year, man, there was a multiplication of the fudge. Every single time we went back to the fridge to look for more fudge to cut it up, there would be full trays in there again. Like
no way.
Like significantly multiplying the fudge. It was awesome.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So to me, it's a good father, you know.
It's a good father, and it's also it's like it works. Like the gospel is real when you actually plug into the truth, and you actually work on like the detachments from the things of the world, and growing in virtue and holiness and purification. And it's like you enter in when no better place to do it than religious life, and you actually enter into the councils, and then like all of a sudden you just see the world come alive in a whole different way. There's like this whole layer behind it, and so I've been on a kick right now with my oldest is turning 12.
Oh, nice.
And he started getting into now. Actually, this is a great segue into what I wanted to talk to you about today.
All right.
I'm actually curious about your opinion on this.
All right.
So he stumbled into Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I was always a paladin, by the way, or a healer.
So I don't know anything about anything. I was a nerd in high school and younger, but I was like building computers. I was not like
that's so funny.
Dungeons and Dragons type level. But so here's the thing. Previous to having kids, I had a bias. I thought it was like weird. It's like kids in their basements with trench coats and then there was like
duct tape on their glasses, rolling dice in the dark.
Yeah, and but then there's also like, oh, you're opening up channels and gateways to the demonic.
Absolutely.
And that's where like the devil comes in. So then I got to know the Rices in Steubenville, Bob Rice. And he's a huge gamer.
Oh, yeah, nice.
He loves Star Wars and Star Trek, and he loves Lord of the Rings and Dungeons and Dragons.
There you go.
So that kind of challenged my preconceived notions a little bit. Then my colleague and friend at CatholicPsych, another graduate from IPS, Brian Violette, I find out that he's a huge gamer. Like, I didn't even realize it, but he has like a weekly gaming night.
That's amazing.
He's got a group of friends that he's been in touch with for like a decade, and they have like Wednesday night Dungeons and Dragons or something like that.
And it's mostly guys, not as many women, notice, right?
Yeah, it's not. Although his wife, Teresa, she works with us too. She loves it, but it is mostly guys. Yeah. But so I was like, okay, this is challenging all of my preconceived notions. And then I was on a prayer retreat, and I was like really deep in some silence, and I just had some new insights about the mystical nature of the world, and how like we are mostly walking around blind to the realities of the world around us. And then it just struck me, because all this has been in the zeitgeist of my life right now. And I was like, Dungeons and Dragons is a training program for the imagination to actually see the realities of life that are invisible to us, that are real.
Wow.
And all of a sudden I called Brian. I was like, Brian,
Wow.
I just figured it out. I was like,
Wow.
Dungeons and Dragons is great. He's like, dude, I
It's
know.
training.
I've been
Isn't
trying
that
to tell you
so
this.
funny? That would be wild to go into the mechanics and all the dynamics of Dungeons and Dragons, but at some level, I mean, there's narrative reconstruction going on in the role play, right? There's projective identification happening, if you want to get into some deep clinical terms, right? Like, there's so much that happens. They're little boys who are projecting in their play and trying to overcome obstacles in themselves. And and we all are meant for the supernatural, superpower life, you know?
Yes.
And so that's
and we have to look for it. Like, we talk about it. We're talking about having intercessors.
And the metaphors of different, I mean, you can listen to Jordan Peterson talk about the dragon and what that represents, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But if we don't train ourselves to see these realities,
Right.
then it's like those are kids' play. That's like childish things. And then we become adults, and now we have to act like adults. Yeah. But it's like we've killed the imagination to become adults. And then we're supposed to also believe in the intercession of the communion of the saints and
all
grace
these things.
And the supernatural power of grace.
But wasn't there a great man who said once that unless you turn and become like a child, you won't be able to see the kingdom of heaven?
Amen. It's right there. Or enter.
Enter.
It's like,
born of the
Spirit,
Spirit
enter
and
the
water
of
too.
Heaven. You gotta be like
absolutely. It's wild. And there's I don't know. There's lots of different ends we can go into this, but I do want to ask the question because, and this is maybe just selfish, but you know, you're reading through some of these books and figuring out like the instructions and the different pathways and the different adventures and things. Like, there's some dark stuff in there too. Like, what about like the necromancy and you're casting spells and like, number one, have you really thought about this much? Number two, like, do you draw the line anywhere? Yeah.
Like, what's the litmus test of unhealthy use of this kind of fantasy role play? Is there one? I don't know.
Yeah. Gosh. Well, kind of blending it with the spiritual worldview that you're becoming more aware of and the unveiling that's kind of happening. There's a book by a guy named Blake Healy called The Veil. This guy is a seer, so he sees in the spirit, open-eyed all the time. And it's pretty wild. And there's lots of people like that, less in the Catholic world, more in the Protestant world. Profound story, but he listened to...
What is it? Blake what? What's his last name?
Blake Healy. And it's
Healy,
called...
And
it's called The Veil.
A Protestant?
Yeah. He teaches at one of their schools of ministry, discipleship things in Atlanta. But his book, The Veil, it's just wild. He was listening to a Rage Against Machines song and had like this mystical experience where he saw the spiritual narrative playing itself out in the song. And it was like this soul kind of crying out for justice or something like that. And it was this beautiful thing. And so that there was something deeply spiritual in it, you know, and that he could resonate with and recognizing what was wanting for Christ maybe. But anyways, you think about Dungeons and Dragons, you asked about like where the levels are of necromancy on one end to, you know, and just spells in general. Well, I like to start with even this. My son even asked me the other day, is magic real, right? We had this whole conversation of like, no, not really. It's not really real. Like, what is magic? What is immaterial? What is spiritual? Right? We're starting to have metaphysical conversations. My son's 10 now, so a little bit younger than yours. But I love how C.S. Lewis and J.R. Tolkien talk about magic. It was different the way they talked about magic back then than the way we do today. Where magic was almost like this space between a child's imagination and this, I don't know, spiritual space for adults, you know? Magic is a very special thing. But it's not, I don't know. It's in literature, right? And so I think if you think of Dungeons and Dragons as looking at it just as a role play exercise, and yes, a lot can happen and can play itself out in a role play exercise. You're stepping into a character, an archetype, if you will, that typically plays out a certain, that aligns with maybe a certain part of your own psyche that for whatever reason you are drawn to, because that might be the area that you are currently working out or, resonating with, right? There's something very personal in that. And sometimes it can look dark. Sometimes you can have a part of yourself that looks like it wants to destroy things. And sometimes in therapy, it's nice to know that that can be allowed and have space. And the arc of the story is a victory, a resolution, a conflict resolution, for every character.
Yeah.
Whether you're chaotic good or lawful evil or whatever it is. Yeah,
this is some deep stuff, and I've been thinking about this also in terms of some work in the overlapping world of demonic exorcism and consultation from the world of Catholic psychology.
Yeah,
and really great stuff. Do you do any work with internal family systems? Do you use that in your approach to the sort of demonic constructs?
I do. I think it's just great language for people to be able to describe their own experience, and I think so often when people feel anxious or overwhelmed or confused, it's so convoluted in your mind. So when you can talk about parts, it helps bring a lot of clarity for people.
Yeah. So long way around to say it's a lot of times you find that a lot of these cases are these demonic-like behaviors that are coming out that actually are like deeply expressed parts. Mm-hmm. If there's some way that acting out of a certain part is serving the person and serving the system.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's been a certain dimension of work moving in that direction of saying like, all right, maybe we're over-diagnosing some of these cases a little bit. And according to parts theory, that's really dangerous because then you become, you start exorcising parts, which is like the problem in the first place, that these are exiles, quote unquote. We need to actually pull them back in and integrate, not cast them out.
Right.
But I was just thinking about this in terms of Dungeons and Dragons, because it's almost like the same principle, but in reverse.
I love that we're still talking about Dungeons and Dragons, by the way. This is not where I thought this was going to go.
Bring it back.
This is so good.
So if you're expressing one of these parts, like I think about the characters of a Dungeons and Dragons, like an opportunity to really like step into a part and like really act out a part's role. And like you said, all that sort of resolution, wish fulfillment, or whatever it is, having corrective emotional experiences while you're working through some of these things.
Exactly.
And having that
the way that
arc.
Dwarf looked at me.
Just changed. I found I had the strength.
Yes.
But then you end up. So it might seem that then like it's dabbling with something that's demonic, but at the end of the day, like this is all part of the narrative and the ways that because of the archetypes, because of the cultural images, because of what we've learned and read and the mythology that we've been subject to since children.
Yeah.
Like that's the way our interior psyche constructs the world of good and evil.
It's story and relationship driven. Completely.
Exactly.
Because we're identity, character, archetype based in our constructs, and totally. So that's wild. Dungeons and Dragons, my gosh.
Not what you thought you were talking about today, huh?
No, I think that there's something so powerful, obviously, about it, and that's why it provokes some people, and why it can become. I mean, it's formational. Put it that way, right? That kind of space, that projective space that you're creating in Dungeons and Dragons, or just think about the projective space, the transitional space in the mass or any ritual. Like this is places that you place yourself in that's not your normal life. It kind of gets you out of yourself, that kind of recreates yourself in some sense, right? Powerful stuff. Of course it can become spiritually problematic, especially when people are somehow seeking a solution for themselves that's power outside of relationship. When they want spiritual power, especially outside of relationship with God.
Yes.
When they start becoming enticed by, there is a temptation perhaps in some people when they start to experiment with a video game or Dungeons and Dragons, and you have this character that has all these abilities. It can make you feel like I'm more special there than in my normal life. Or it's like, I prefer life on the drug than facing reality. But I don't think
100%.
But I think that's a failure on our part and a lack of maybe revelation of what we're called to in Christ.
100%. And I think, especially with children and parenting, this is a really important point to make, because what I've found is my son is also a voracious reader.
Oh, yeah.
And, like, unbelievable. Like, I've never seen anything like it.
Love it.
And, like, he
Same,
reads
by the
Tolkien,
way.
like, per week. He'll read, like, he just finished Hobbit in 2 days.
Nice.
And it was like his 5th time reading The Hobbit.
Oh my gosh, love it.
So I'm like a little bit nervous about, like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do for this kid. Like, that was, I mean, I like to read, but that's like, I don't know what to do with that. So, but here's the point. He can be reading Tolkien or Shakespeare, and he can be so deep into the story and the fantasy and the characters, and he's gone for the whole day.
And then he can't sit still at dinner or mass.
He can't sit still. He doesn't want to talk to the family at the dinner table. You know, we have rules like you can't have the books at the table. Like, that's our rule. You can't have books at the table. We have to make that rule because otherwise he's literally walking around the house reading a book all day. So you're like, okay, but wait a minute. So what is the temptation and what's the danger? It's obviously he's like still working to build his executive functioning. He's making good choices for himself. He has to, manage the differences between too much and too little and the golden mean and all these beautiful things. But it doesn't matter if it's Tolkien or, I'll say it, Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Like, it's actually, like, the content is not really as important as the process here.
Sure.
And it's sort of like what's actually happening. And I think our culture gets so hung up on, well, the magic in Harry Potter is different than the magic in Tolkien.
They're real spells.
Yeah, it's like, because they're real Latin words. Like, it's the Latin word for fire. Like, that's not a spell. It's just the word fire, but in a different language. Yeah. Like,
but what is a spell? An idol is nothing, right? So
yes.
Anyways, but yeah, no, I first of all, I think that's awesome. And as a dad, yeah, it's hard to see the too much in a kid because they're almost made for things to be too much. And I love, my son, he can't sit down without, he just craves having a book. He loves to eat alone because then he can read, and snack time is the best. Like, no, you want a snack? Sure. Where did he go? He went to find a book all of a sudden, impulse. Yeah. And gosh, there are some great series out there, but I was like that as a kid though, too. I don't know if you were, but from Hardy Boy mysteries to Dragonlance type Dungeons and Dragons fantasy type stuff. I loved that. And that was so formative for me, especially when you can almost see in all the characters different capacities in personality, and in some sense you're kind of trying to sense who are you? And how do you fit in? How are you different? There's something so formative about that in your identity, and inspiring to see what's possible, right? Even going to places that maybe you wouldn't feel comfortable with normally, you can go to in a story. Certain risks you could face. Like, that's so cool. Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you put these pieces together and you realize that the world we live in is much closer to the fantasy than a lot of people give credit for or realize. And then when you realize that, in the formation and that formative process, by entering fully in this integrated way with our whole imagination and our emotion, and we are forging our character in these worlds where these really fantastical things are happening. like it blows my mind when like God has blessed us with so much beauty in our life. We have, we have baby number 8 on the way. We have like so much health and goodness, and like we have not had to deal with the kind of suffering and tragedy that a lot of the people that we serve have dealt with. And it blows my mind when I meet, especially recently, there's been a number of people in this situation that have lost a small child. And, again, bring back Therese again, like reading about the her family and Louis and Zelly Martin and the loss that they suffered, and how, and then when I first read that, it's like, but that doesn't happen anymore. Medical science, now
does.
Keeps everybody safe. And it's like, gosh, so many parents deal with, first of all, just miscarriage, but then also infant death and child death. And it's like, where do people find the strength or come up with the ability to live through something like that? And these are epic mission type journeys that it's like the Lord of the Rings. I mean, forget about Sauron, when it's like,
well, it gets to a point where pain is so great that it gets metaphorical almost. It becomes meaning making. It becomes existential even, and because to speak to certain mysteries, it's a mystery. Death is a mystery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, through parenthood, through marriage and through parenthood, we just open ourselves up to it. It's like every new baby and every new experience of moving forward with the kids growing and having these like developmental
completely
shifts and changes and growth. It's like you just get more and more vulnerable. It's like, oh my gosh, like it's like something mythological could happen any moment.
Yeah, mythological. Seriously. Well, I love. Now we're talking about our sons, it seems today, but being a parent, it teaches me so much about being a therapist. It's shaped. I mean, eventually we'll talk about maybe book kind of thing, but even the cover it's a story of my son. I'll tell you about that later. But isn't it wild? I love what you're doing right now with. If I could just pivot for a second.
I do want to talk about your book too. So we'll swing back around.
Yeah. Well, just you learn so much of. Summarizing a couple things that we're kind of living within the fantasy, right? That reality is actually through a veil that's being unveiled. That we still see through a mirror dimly. There's this reality. And before my conversion from atheism, I actually read Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning. And that opened me up to consider life in a new way. And I think that's what it comes down to. It's in all these things and all these forms and all these images and all these different activities, behaviors, Dungeons and Dragons, Harry Potter, whatever it might be, all these different characters and stories. And it's about making meaning. And it's the meaning that shapes our hearts, that shapes our minds, and we're just meaning making, and I love to think how, man, we take for granted how interpreted everything in life is. Everything we see, everything we hear, from language to the body, is symbolic, right? It's filled with symbolism, and I just find it so profound that where people suffer is where so often there's been a misinterpretation, a distortion in perception, right? And also oftentimes a reductionism then in blame, and it keeps us stuck. Yeah, and so yeah, it's kind of cool stuff. Kind of. Man, we have like the coolest careers, honestly, to talk about just the philosophy of human person, go deep into people's stories. explore these mysteries. I love this profession, honestly. It's so cool.
True. It's an awesome thing. And it's like the best profession. You're like just parallel to the spiritual life.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the priests and religious we work with, it's like, man, when you're like front and center in the middle of the spiritual life, and you're just like directly it, and then people are counting on you for directing their spiritual lives. So you're like, that's wrought with difficulty and temptations and dangers. But then we're sort of like off to the side, and if you're doing it right, I think we're right in line and parallel with the spiritual life. But we're not necessarily front and center on it. And so what I find, it's like the most, I'm so grateful for this vocation, for even just for my own sake.
Yeah.
And there's so many things that I'm just like faced with daily because of my own needs that God is showing me, like, okay, now this is what you're going to learn from this for yourself.
Exactly. This
and you get to
for
grow
you.
Through it. This one's for you.
Yeah. Remind you of anything?
Yeah, exactly. Man. Yeah. So, all right. So big God, little devil.
Okay. Yeah.
There's, the reason why I wanted to place this, I've been wanting to have you on the show for a while, just have a deeper conversation with you. But
sure.
Specifically, we're looking at, where we might be missing the reality of really what we're talking about, like what's really behind the veil. And the way that even the church, at times, little capital C church, the practice, the culture of the church, and certainly the culture of the world, is misinterpreting the veil, and
and our relationship with beings through it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I just find like there's the wrong emphasis especially when it comes to demonic influence and activity. And I was so happy when I saw your book coming out, and we talked at the last conference together. But it's just like, man, thank God you're putting a name to it. You made an awesome cover. Like there's a great graphic to illustrate it. Yeah. And it's like, man, this needs to ruffle feathers. And in all the people that are flocking to YouTube to watch clips from Father Ripperger and clips from this exorcist and that exorcist, and this is what they say about this is how we channel demonic activity, and we have to shut down all these pathways to the demonic. And it's like, there's a really big problem here. Yeah, because this massive smoke and mirrors trick from the devil is actually misleading people away from where he actually operates.
Totally.
Because he's real.
So, yeah.
But he's like a magician waving, don't pay attention to my right hand. Pay attention to all the stuff happening over here.
It's like that movie Inception. We're like in this weird other reality. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
So tell me your story behind it. Like what got you to write it? Tell me more. Tell me about the cover. Tell me about your son's story. Tell me the whole thing.
Sure. Yeah. I'll just kind of ramble a bit here. I'm good at that. So when I went to IPS after having been in religious life, I had a lot of questions when it came to studying psychology because my background had been primarily prayer-based, spiritual primarily. And so I didn't quite see the distinction between the psychology and the spiritual in the same way. It was hard for me to recognize that boundary sometimes. And when I was in the intercessors, we had some conferences where we had 5,000 people for a summer conference, so pretty big gatherings and lots of powerful Holy Spirit manifestations going on, and miracles and things. And there would be times where people would be shrieking out demonically, yelling at a priest, and you could tell this person is not there anymore and something is speaking. And so I saw that back then. And there's times when you're praying over someone where there's different kinds of shaking or trembling that can seem good or bad, depending on what's happening in the prayer. And you see that kind of stuff. And so there's this whole other reality of human experience that I knew is real. And then obviously, as believers, Jesus, he cast out things in scripture that seemed like what today might be categorized as maybe psychiatric conditions, right? Like the boy with epilepsy, and he commanded a deaf and dumb spirit to leave, right? That's interesting, you know. So I just had lots of questions about that integration, really, and found that there just wasn't a whole lot of answers, and so started my own research and turned it into my own dissertation. Was on exorcism, deliverance, and psychotherapy, and it was like a comprehensive literature review. So found some really cool articles in the databases from like anthropological studies on maybe one case of something supernatural going on here, or just cultural studies in general. Some really cool stuff, as well as some deeply psychoanalytic, psychiatric, critical articles that just try to debunk the whole thing, and I saw the whole spectrum, So when I started my practice, though, I didn't really expect it, but I started getting referred people who were struggling with demonic affliction of some sort, and started working alongside Bishop David O'Connell out here in Los Angeles, who started to refer to me people to be evaluated before or alongside receiving exorcisms. So he was really trying to develop a system for people that were seeking help, and he was getting a lot of people that sought him out because he's involved sometimes. He was involved sometimes in like the charismatic circles, so people would seek him out for prayer, and he was comfortable with like minor deliverance, but when it came to more significant manifestations or cases, he didn't feel very prepared, and so he often consulted with me, and we started working together. And so it kind of emerged organically in that way. But then looking back now, it's like, no, duh. It's like there's always been this thread of an interest and maybe a charism or something there, So that's kind of that's just been the background. And it's been interesting that over the years, family life, you get busy. I always had this thing where whenever I do tasks, like whether it's dishes or whatever it might be, I'm like an active contemplative. So I just ponder and I pray, like the practice of the presence of God kind of stuff. And sometimes I just get these downloads, especially washing the dishes. That's like my sweet spot. And it's been really years of these nuggets in dialogue with God, whether it's a passage of scripture or whether it's just an engagement with him or something that is coming up. And so, and one of my, I guess my strengths is I like to gather information too. So I categorize things, I write things down, and so I can access it. And so I just have basically built up this unfolding understanding of worldview about how to see the spiritual warfare in this different way that I kind of talk about in the book. Because, as you know, like, so one of my, I should probably said this, and I don't know, you're going to be long form, so I'm going to keep going, whatever. I just started getting really irked by all the people coming into my office that were just super anxious and fearful, and it just was making me cringe sometimes by some of the stories I would hear, things that seemed unbelievable that they were afraid of happening, right? And so there was definitely an aspect of, yes, maybe something was happening in people's lives. Yes, maybe their house was cursed. Yes, there was some witchcraft, something. Sure, something seems to be happening. Pictures are moving around your house. Yes, things are happening at night. Okay, great. It's happening. But why are you so freaked out? Like, do you know who you are? Do you know what those things are? They're nothing. I just had this attitude because of some of the experiences I had with the Lord of really coming to know who he is and what he's done, and seeing him show up so often in inner healing sessions with people. He was just, yeah. So I started becoming so indignant hearing the same things from people. Sometimes, repeating something an exorcist would say, or just a common superstitious belief. Maybe it's about the power of curses or whatever it might have been that opened the door for them to have this affliction. And these people were living like victims and really seeking the pill, that give them the easy way out, the rite of exorcism or whatever you want to call it, you know? And so often people were so disconnected relationally in their walk with God. They had no idea where they were really in their walk with God. And so I just found that when I started sitting with people and just in this process and really focusing on building communion with the Lord, right in the midst of what was happening, even when there was manifestations happening, like, and I have lots of clients who you know, full blown manifest or whatever in my office, you know, just sitting in the chair and speaking in Italian or whatever else might be, and, you know, moving around and all this stuff, and it's super fun. I mean, when it happens, sometimes I just laugh. No, seriously, because at this point, like, the way I roll with them and learn how to sit with it, they'll kind of welcome some things to really get at what's underneath. Because, I mean, as you know in the book, my whole philosophy is, if the devil prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour, well, a roaring lion is a terrible prowler. He reveals where he's hiding. So he wants you to react to the manifestation instead of recognizing that he's exposed. The place of influence is now exposed. And I mean, in our art, exposure therapy, we want people to get to that place of exposure so that change can happen. And so I've just found that that's the moment of opportunity, even with the Lord, to bring some profound healing and transformation. So yeah, it's amazing. And different approach where awesome. It's just, I'm not doing it for them. I'm just sitting with them, containing it, and asking questions.
Yeah, cool. When it comes up, it comes up. And then, you know, when somebody's sitting in the chair, I mean, I had somebody sitting with me, and then, and you know, I didn't, in my mind, I had somebody that was like textbook schizophrenic, like total paranoid schizophrenia, you know, and then this person was telling me things that the demons were telling them about me.
Oh, yeah.
And I just blew it all off because I was like, oh, this person's schizophrenic. And then I talked to an expert psychiatrist here who does a lot of work with the Vatican with exorcisms. And he goes, wait, what was I had mentioned there was this like token that the demon had given this person. And then there was an image on the token.
Yeah.
And he goes, wait, was it something on the token? And I said, yes. He goes, oh, that demon's been following me.
Hilarious.
Like, wait a minute. What demon?
Just so you know. Just so you know.
I'm sure that this is happening because you're going to call me. And he's like, this demon has been showing up, and that token is his calling card or whatever. And then all of a sudden I realized everything that had been said in those sessions about me was coming. Now,
from a demon.
They're all liars, and it doesn't matter what was said or not. But the fact is, like, you get to the place where you're like, oh yeah, okay. And I just love that perspective of any of those real manifestations. They're like gnats that you just can, squish out like mosquitoes. But the problem is the thing that I think you had that like holy and righteous indignation about is the sleight of hand.
Oh.
That the devil's doing,
the suffering and the anxiety and the stress and the
so
fear, it's terrible.
Lack of faith and trust.
And there's a whole system in theology and mindset and principles and cultural behavior, so much built on top of it. It's a house of cards.
And it feels like...
And it feels very religious, too.
Yeah. And it's like this demon of like Zoroastrianism of like...
Sure, something.
There's good versus evil. And God, it's split. And like, you don't know who's going to win. And it's like this horrible thing.
Yeah.
And you're just like, man, that's not what we're baptized into.
Yeah.
Like, that can't be it.
I don't even want to give the enemy credit. You know, with our darkened intellects, man, we're just idiots.
Right.
We think ourselves into a lot of problems. I mean, human reasoning, Peter got rebuked, get behind me, Satan, right? We are obstacles to God's ways.
That's a great connection, actually. That's more than an example. Like, I think that's literally what it's human reasoning, but it's manifesting, and then Jesus calls it Satan.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
What about all these things we're thinking are Satan? It's like, how much of it is the human weakness of reasoning wrapped up into that?
Absolutely.
So
I know.
Well, I
there's
hope
always
it's
like,
enough of a
yeah,
teaser. People just go get your book because it's awesome. And
yes,
anyone
funny.
who has any fascination in the demonic, don't turn it to YouTube. Turn it to this book.
Yeah,
Big bad little devil. But you said there was a story about the cover.
yeah. So I got it here. So Saint Teresa of Avila said that when a soul is turned towards the beloved in such a way, the devil dare not approach or attack, because he knows that he's going to experience a loss, and that soul is going to experience a corresponding gain. So basically, we can benefit from the enemy. What he means to, to come against us with becomes what trains us, what helps us grow and refines us. And the book is really about this reframing of how much God is superior and sovereign above the enemy, and even using him for his purposes and for our gain as well. And so it reframes the whole thing, even not just spiritual warfare, but even then for deliverance, and it brings it back into a healthier spirituality. My son, as an example, when he was about 4 years old, going through a stage maybe where he was afraid of the dark, and he was crying out at night one time, and he's pretty spiritually sensitive. Like, there's times we'll be doing Stations of the Cross, and he'd be crying happy tears because he feels the Holy Spirit on him and stuff, and he's very sensitive in that way. Called me to his room, and he said, "Dad, I'm scared." I'm like, "Why are you scared?" I see spooky shadows. I'm like, "Okay, why are you scared of the shadows?" "Because I see demons in them." He sees demons in the shadows. Obviously, that's a rite of passage every kid goes through. Not a big deal, right? But I also believe that, there probably are. There's bacteria all over the place too. Probably are demons, whatever. Of course they're going to try to, get at him with his fear and provoke him, whatever. And maybe he does see that, whatever. No big deal. So there's probably demons in my son's room right now. And so I thought to myself, I can command them to leave. I can invoke the armies of heaven to fill the room with light. I could install a night light. I could stand by his side. I could do all these things, right? It might become negative reinforcement to just quality time together, so he might just keep whining and keep having an issue with that. You know how? Anyways, instead,
it's hard to be a psychologist sometimes.
Oh my gosh.
You got a lot of options in your mind.
I just went on there for a second too. I think I need a sip. Yeah. So instead, and this is my approach, is, so what, right? Okay, why are you afraid of demons? My little 4-year-old son. He's like, well, because they'll eat me. Well, why are you afraid that they're going to eat you? I mean, I'm thinking to myself, like, man, go to heaven. Yes. I love St. Ignatius. Anyways. He's like, well, because then I'll be dead. I was like, well, why are you afraid of dying? They've always had a healthy view of heaven. Well, then, because then I think I'll feel alone. And so he's trying to process what that means, right? And so I just realized in this little 4-year-old boy's heart, the idea of being alone, dying, that's what he's afraid of. And so I just asked God, with my little 4-year-old son right there, God, what do you want him to know right now, where he is afraid of these demons because they're going to make him feel alone? What do you want him to know? And he just closed his eyes for a second, and it's a spiritual moment when God's talking with your kids when they close their eyes, because most of the time when they pray, it's like anything but focusing. You know how that is. They can be pretty good, but I just knew he was experiencing something. He was receiving something. So after a moment, he just opened his eyes and says, "Okay, I saw myself in God's hand. He was a giant hand, and I was sitting in God's hand. And then with God's other hand, he was reaching down and squishing the devil like a bug. And he laughed when he told me, and he thanked me, and he said, 'Thank you, Daddy,' and he rolled over and he went to bed."
Wow.
And he never had a problem since. Never had a problem since. Like that was like the best sleep training. I mean, that was incredible. And all I had to do was say, "God, what do you want him to know?" And but you see how what the enemy tries to create a situation where he can get leverage through fear, right? Through our own self-preservation. If I would have dismissed my son or invalidated that, I might have enabled in him some self-reliance, and something could have come forth from that, right? Yeah. Or if I anxiously, fought for him, what would I be communicating? Do I actually have authority? Am I intimidated? Right? What am I communicating to my son in that? Versus like, so what? Yeah. And then God just displaced the temptation by revelation of love.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Man, praise God. That's awesome.
Yeah.
What an awesome example. What a great story.
Yeah. So, bro,
I feel like we're gonna wrap it up there. I don't think we can end on anything better than that. That's beautiful.
Yeah. Right on.
And then that becomes this full circle culmination. It's like your own training, your own formation, your own experience, your own path, and then it's expressing itself outwards. It's like the full circle of the family of the school of love, which is the family. So you have the fruit of your marital vow, and then the continuation of your gift of self, and it's being received by your son, and then it just continues to radiate outwards. And now you get to share this with the rest of the world. So your fatherhood is radiating even further out through this book and through your ministry and your vocation.
Amen. Dude, the Father is amazing, isn't he? Ugh.
So good.
Always more.
Man. Well, I know this is just the first of hopefully many that we can continue on back.
For sure.
I really appreciate you coming on. Hopefully you'll come back again for us here.
This was fun. No expectations.
Yeah, don't have any coming here. So
there you go.
But so where can people find you and your book?
Yeah, so biggodlittledevil.com is the book landing page. Has some links to some of my socials. I periodically put out some posts on Substack or my website, just going into different nuances, topics related to deliverance, spiritual warfare, that kind of stuff, psychology. Instagram, Facebook, Dr. Sean Tobin. I'm kind of pivoting just to continue to speak into this space, and I love what you're doing with this podcast thing. And I don't know, I'm just right now I'm being open to what the Lord might be doing, but this is really fun.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's definitely a lot of work. I could have never have done it on my own.
For sure.
It's only because of having a team of people that keep me going and
absolutely
and keeping it going out there. It is fun though. In the moment, it's totally fun.
Yeah.
But I just really appreciate first of all, your media approach is awesome. Yeah. Your Instagram game is on fire.
Thanks, bro.
Yeah. I use your posts for our team. I'm like, we got to do stuff like this. Like you're doing awesome work on Instagram. All you listeners, go look up Dr. Sean Tobin and it's SEAN Tobin on Instagram. Yeah. It's hilarious.
Yeah,
I mean, your hotline. You had like a hotline calling in with demonic requests. I was dying. So, anyways, keep them coming.
All right,
keep the work coming. And thanks for blessing us here.
Yeah, man. Well, my pleasure. And let's definitely be in touch for the future.
All right, God bless you. Thanks for listening to the Being Human podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode and want to help us spread the word and hear more, please head over to iTunes, leave us a review, and subscribe, as it really helps us to get our content out to more people. Be sure to listen next time as I take you deeper into what it means to be human. If you want more free content and information about what we do at the Catholic Psych Institute, head on over to CatholicPsych.com. God bless you.